All right, once we set up our region of interest, our number of blocks, sensitivity, and all of that, we go ahead and click on the next button. And of course, again, the activity time indicates what notification will be sent if the alarm occurs. You can enable the alarm for up to 3 different daytime selections, and the default, of course, is 24/7. And again, the idea is, when do you want to be alert of the alarm? For example, if it's a corridor during the day hours, you might not want to receive motion detection because people are supposed to be in the corridor and they are supposed to be walking around. And maybe only at night or on the weekends you would want that. So for example, if I want it to be only at night, I can set it up from 5 p.m. until let's say 8 a.m. the following day. And let me just make all these zeros so it looks a little nicer. And if I set it up like this, you can see that at 5 p.m. Monday it'll start, and at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, the following day, the alarm activity will stop. Meaning that if motion is detected anytime on Monday between 5 p.m. and 8 a.m., on this collector unit, I will receive an alarm notification. And later when we start putting in macros along with it, I will be receiving those as well. However, if the alarm occurs at, let's say, 4 p.m., then I will not receive the alarm notification. It's as if it never happened. All right, so that's the idea behind that. I'm going to go back and select the 24-hour period, and I'm going to click on Next. And again, we get to related devices, which we're going to skip for now, and we get to the end. And we're going to get into the macros in a minute, but just to finish the motion detection, click on Finish, and there it is dictated to me at the bottom so that I could see that it actually took in my parameter. I'm going to click on OK and go back to over here in the main screen. I'm going to bring up the camera. There's my camera number 3. It's a PTZ camera, and the reason I chose that is so that if I send it to a different preset, the camera will have moved, and in a sense it's a way of showing movement occurred in the area and then how it relates to it. So if I go to a different area, the alarm would go off. Now, somebody might have changed the settings since I last did this, so we'll get to in a second about the alarm window itself. Let me just mention about third-party and megapixel cameras. Video motion detection in third-party and megapixel cameras is configured in the camera's internal setup. Access to the setup screen is performed via a web browser and entering the camera's IP address as the URL. This screen can also be accessed via the ViconNet Nucleus-specific setup options by selecting the Ionix, 9XX, and third-party cameras setup button. In other words, when dealing with a third-party or megapixel camera, you must go into the Nucleus machine, and then under Nucleus specific, down at the bottom, there's the Ionix, 9XX, and third-party cameras. And then when you, through that screen, you're able to access that web browser for those cameras. Now, video motion detection alarms generated by these cameras are sent to ViconNet via the external alarm feature. The external alarm feature we're going to learn in a little bit. And basically, the camera must be in use, viewing or recording to send the alarm signal. And again, we'll talk about external alarms in a little while. I'm going to go 1 second back to over here. And let me take a look at my activity detection. Let me edit it a second. Let me just make sure that I have all of that. And finish. All right. Now I need to give it the amount of time it needs between the alarms to get the alarm window, but we'll get to that in a minute. In order to send an alarm and be able to receive alarm notifications when an alarm goes off, we need to use a macro in order to do that. In many situations, the user wants to be notified of an alarm on a workstation that is not connected where the alarm occurred. This is most evident when configuring alarms in an IP camera. In fact, what happens is when the alarm that we just had went off, on the collector itself, the alarm notification occurred. If that makes sense, this camera number 3 is connected to the collector itself. And on the collector monitor, since that's where the camera physically is connected, the alarm window pops up. Now I'm here on my own workstation and I'm configuring the collector so that the configuration is still at the collector. So when that alarm went off, when we moved the camera, the collector received the alarm notification, the collector showed the alarm window. What I'm trying to do now is have that alarm window pop up on my screen. And that is what the send alarm function in the macro does. ViconNet enables any alarm to be notified to any combination of workstations. The procedure is the same regardless of the type of alarm described above. Sending alarm notifications is done through the macro. So what we need to do is we need to enter the macro editor in the system settings screen of the unit or IP camera where the alarm is configured. So what I need to do right now is I have to go back to the collector so that then I tell it what to do when that alarm is triggered. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the macro editor and I'm going to click on add macro. And the only command I really want to do is the send alarm command, which is here in the left in the middle. Now we're not going to get into macros, other functions such as display or record and display. That actually we have a clip that talks about all that if you're more interested in other aspects of the macro commands. And by all means, on the Vicon website, there is clips on how to do that. What we're concentrating right now on is the send alarm command. I'm going to click on send alarm, and it asks me to enter a destination. And the destination can be any machine in the ViconNet system. And I'm going to select my own machine from the list. And then I click on the apply button, and as you can see, that command is added to the macro that I'm creating. Now I can add as many send alarm commands as I want, each with a different destination. And when the alarm occurs and the macro is activated, all send alarm commands will be executed and all respective devices will receive the alarm notification. I'm only going to put myself on the list, but if I selected 2 more workstations, then they would receive the alarm as well once that alarm is triggered. Note, send alarm is used to forward a notification for an alarm that occurred in the system. The send alarm command does not work if there is no alarm triggered. All right, so you have to have the alarm trigger the macro in order for the send alarm command to be used. And one last note, the send alarm command should be first in your macro. All other commands should come afterwards. The send alarm command does not take up time. So once the macro is activated, it simply runs through the send alarm commands if they are at the top. If I had a different command that took a minute to work and the send alarm were to be after that command, then I would wait a minute before I would send the alarm, and that's not what you want it to do. I'm going to give my macro a name. I'm going to call it camera 3 video motion detection, for example. Any name will do. Just make sure it's a logical name that you can then follow through with later on. When I'm done creating my send alarm command in my macro, I'm going to click on save, and it saved it in the list. And keep in mind again that I'm on the collective force. I'm going to click on the close. And now what I need to do is link that macro to the alarm. So I'm going to go into my alarms screen. I'm going to select my activity detection, and I'm going to edit it. And if you recall, the last screen we had was the ability to select a macro to run when this detector is activated. And I've been skipping this up to now. And here's my macro that I just created on the collective force. So I turn that on. And when I click on finish, here it shows me in the summary of my alarm window that the macro name camera 3 VMD is linked to the camera 3 activity detection